Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The Professional Service Group of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. So in addition to being Aloha Friday, it is actually National Just Because Day. So you can do anything you want today just because. So go out and do something a little bit fun, or do something at home a little bit fun, just because, or just because you want to. So today is National Just Because Day. Have a happy National Just Because Day. Our group is here for you, anybody that is in a career transition, and it doesn't really matter why. It could be that your former employer has made some sort of reorganizations. A lot of people were affected that way. I have been affected that way twice. It could also be you are taking your own career direction in your own hands, and you needed the time off in order to focus on your own career. So that could be a reason as well. We are here to help make your job search more efficient and more effective. We want you to be more efficient and effective in your own job search. And so we have a lot of tools and resources available to you. We do have our website. Our website is psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It has over 120 pages of content, so there's a lot of information there. Go through it, look through different sections of the website to see if you can find information that is very relevant for you. And in any of the topics that we do cover, it's not the be-all and end-all of career search. For some of you, it's really a starting point. So you may want to look on our menu. There's something called career options, and when you open up that section, you'll see different topics. One is getting started in the job search process. Maybe you're interested in volunteerism, starting a business, working as a consultant, even buying a franchise. And so these may be opportunities for you to learn a little bit more about those things. And again, starting point, it's not the be-all end-all. So go take a look when you can at our website. It is very robust. In addition, we do have our own LinkedIn group. It is called PSG of Mercer County. If you are not yet a member of our LinkedIn group, please search for the group and request to join. Now, the only people we let into the group are you. It's a little bit of a private group. It's not a hidden group, but it's by invitation only or by request only. And so the only people that we do let into our group are people that have been to one of our meetings, either in person or virtually, but have been to our meetings at least once, because we're trying to keep out the name collectors and the list collectors. And it's funny, every once in a while I get an email on our PSG email asking for me to download and provide somebody I don't know our whole list of contacts, and I will not do that. I never share our information. And our LinkedIn group has the same sort of privacy. We want to make sure it's for people who are really just interested in helping each other through job search. And so we have over 1,680 members right now. And so we're looking to be a resource for as many people in job search that can use us. So feel free to go look for our LinkedIn group, contribute in our LinkedIn group, and we will be happy to have you as a member of the LinkedIn group. In just a moment, I will introduce Marian, and she will start her presentation. We will get ourselves started. And again, ground rules are, please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation unless you are specifically called on. We will be doing some Q&A. Marian is going to keep this an interactive presentation. She may ask for your opinion or have a question for you as well. If you want to comment, you can actually just type the word question in chat. The chat is in the upper right corner. The upper right corner has a little, what's called a cartoon call out. If you click on that now, you'll see that Marian did put a link for an assessment that she's going to ask you about. Some of you, or hopefully all of you, have gotten the email, the opportunity to take the assessment a little bit early, because she'll be talking about that. But if you have any question or comment to ask Marian, type the word question in that chat. And the reason why is there'll be a lot of information that people will be posting in chat, and when I see the word question, it stands out for me. It helps me make sure I don't miss your question. And if you type the word question, when we have an opportunity to take a break, we'll just say, oh, Marian, there's a question from so-and-so, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question of Marian. Or if you'd prefer not to unmute, you can type the word question followed by your question. So type the question there as well. And I will just read the question out loud on your behalf. I do ask, if you type the question for me to read, please do your best to make it as grammatically correct as possible. Sometimes when people type very quickly, there's typos, and it's a little hard for me to read that, and I may have to call on you to clarify. So just be aware, it'll be helpful for all of us. So that's what we'll be doing for Q&A. And let's see, so we are all set to go, and PSG of Mercer County is pleased to welcome Marian Janes. Marian is a professional certified leadership coach, president of Ignite Growth Coaching, and founder of Ignite Growth Academy. She is motivated by being part of someone else's growth and fiercely committed to helping others find their way on the climb to their calling. A serial optimist turned entrepreneur, Marian is a woman of vision, purpose, and intent who will help you find the missing spark that has been smothered for way too long. Once the spark is ignited, there's no stopping the momentum. Marian spent 25 years as a learning and talent development leader. She contributes to the success of the corporate university, which she created and managed, to the commitment and courage of her people who showed up every day with positive and servant-focused mindset. As a professional coach, Marian has engaged with thousands of people on all levels from around the world. She is still awed by the sheer power and value of coaching, of a coaching conversation, and its impact on changing lives. There seems to be no shortage of amazing people like yourselves who fuel Marian's passion for helping others thrive through chaos and uncertainty while positively impacting the world. PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome one of the most positive people I know, Marian Janes.
So much, David. It is such a pleasure to be here, and I am truly grateful for the opportunity to be able to be here with you all today. So anyway, this is a gift for you today. I'm so looking forward to sharing this presentation with you because I've learned so much about myself after having gone through this positive intelligence, positive quotient training. I know some of you in this group might have gone through it as well. And as we go through it, I think you'll see the value. As we get started here, I did want to, first of all, thank you, David, for agreeing. I asked you before if you could monitor the chat, because we want to make sure that all your voices are heard and that nothing slips through the cracks. And I won't be really monitoring that myself. So, but please, I think any of these presentations, I like to think that maybe I own a part of this content and this message I'm going to share with you. But what I think you own is the chat box. So I always encourage people to light it up, make it yours, learn from one another, and make this interactive. It's not just in speaking, but it's in the chat as well. So as we kick off here today, I don't know how many of you have ever heard this topic before, but what I'm curious about is there was a link to an assessment where you could kind of measure in 5 or 10 minutes your own positivity quotient. And I'm wondering, and you could just maybe start typing in the chat simple yes or no, and David, you can kind of give us a feel for that. How many of you actually got to do that? And then I can refer to that. I see some hands, but I don't see everybody on the video, so thank you for that, Barbara.
There are a lot of yeses are coming through. Doing it now, not yet.
Okay, good.
So
and you can't do it now, it just takes a few minutes. If not, that is a resource for you afterwards. You will be armed after today with some basic knowledge of the value of this. What are you seeing in there, Dave?
Someone did it twice.
What percentage?
Someone did it twice, so she's very positive.
Oh, very positive. All right. Love it. So I'm going to go right into my presentation. I encourage you, ask questions, participate. You just own the next hour or so, and we'll see where we go together as a group. So this is all, how many of you go to the gym? You wake up and you go to the gym. Some of you, it's 10:14. You may have already been there. I used to volunteer at the YMCA, and it opened at 5 a.m. And I didn't volunteer at 5 a.m., but by the time I got there at 7, people were leaving. Like they had already been through their workouts, so they were right on the money. became part of their mantra every single day because it made them feel good, contributed to who they were, contributed to their mental focus. So what we're going to do today, all of us, how many of us are there, David?
How many on the call?
But so there's only almost 50 people.
About 50 people right now.
And we're all going to pack our gym bags together and we're going to the gym. So here we go. If you don't have your spandex on, that's okay. So we're going to be talking about mental fitness. And when we do this, this is an enlightening presentation to help you learn how to grow these 3 core mental muscles that are really important to helping you challenge yourself in challenging times. And what better challenging times are there? I mean, there's so many in the world right now. And of course, a job search is super challenging for anybody who's on that journey. Or perhaps you're pivoting from transitioning from the workforce to another time in life. But there's no end to the challenges that there are. So to be mentally fit is something that we have to pay attention to, not only the body, you hear the body, mind. Well, this is the mind part. This is how you keep your mind fit. And your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And I can attest to that. And mental fitness is going to help you determine, how much time your mind is serving you and how much time it's not. And it's not serving you because these saboteurs have tricked us into thinking that they are our friends. And they do help us in many ways if we manage them, but they also trip us up. And they tripped me up a lot in life, didn't even know they existed. But once I learned about this, it kind of accounted for all the ways I show up in life and all the ways I fall short. And I challenge myself. So we're going to build this mental muscle that can help us change behaviors that we intend to change, but they're kind of elusive. I mean, how many times on New Year's does everybody make an idea or make a promise to themselves that they're going to go out and they're going to lose weight, or they're going to be in better shape, or they're going to be a better spouse or whatever, but it doesn't happen because we fall short, because we have the meaning and the intent, but we don't have the mental muscle to be able to do that. So get ready here to unleash the power of your mind as we go to the gym and we build these new brain muscles that are going to serve us only right now, but also in the future. Sound like a good ride? What do you think? All right, I love the enthusiasm. So we're all going on this ride together. And just so you know who's in the driver's seat at the moment, a little bit about myself. I put this find where the wild things are. I'm one of those people that loves chaos and loves change. And I always thought, wow, I'm one of the few that can really thrive through this. I embrace it. But once I learned about this positive intelligence, I realized that, yeah, you know what? From an attitude standpoint, I love it and I help others in changing my practice and my business as a coach. But in parts of it, I really suck. And this is what I learned about myself, is what I'm sharing with you today. And you're going to see that in yourselves as well. So, on the right there, you see the tree. I'm totally committed, totally passionate about people's growth. I was the kid on the playground that was learning new things, teaching them to others. I just constantly have this insatiable appetite to learn and then flip that over to other people. So when I ran the corporate university, it was just an ongoing 25 years of learning. It was copiers, so it was technology change. Copier, connect to a computer, print and color, connect to a network, just 7 acquisitions, constant change, and I really enjoyed it. And the same thing happened becoming a consultant and now turned coach, kind of maybe a little bit of both at this point. But, in the coaching world, there's no end to, a lot of disruptions in people's lives. And that's what makes the value of coaching so great. So I like to think you can find me. I do in nature. I find solace. I find resilience. I find destruction and distraction, but I also find hope. So I go there a lot. I'm a natural tree hugger. And there's a part of me that, just learns, gets refreshed, and comes back and can share this gift with you today. But the funny thing is, I was not always like that. So through this training, this positive intelligence, one thing they have us do is look back to when we were a very small child, perhaps say 5 years old is kind of where a lot of people go back to. So imagine yourself as a small child. And which one do you think is me, by the way? Left or right? You can put L or R in the chat. David can let me know. But first of all, these are those pixie haircuts that my mother, I used to think she used a lawnmower or some kind of bulb, but it turns out she actually paid for those haircuts. And we had those for a long time in life, and they may look familiar. Your siblings might have had them as well, or you might have had them. But the one on the left is me. That's my sister Jean. There were 5 of us, so there's only 2 in the picture. And I wasn't always like I am now, because at 5 years old or as a young child, I was full of wonder. I was full of amazement. I didn't have these saboteurs bogging me down. I probably, as early as preschool, and that's me, again, with the smile on my face and the little dress jacket. At that point, I just wanted to wake up and be happy. We went out and played. We didn't have a lot of responsibility. We didn't even have electronics, so there was not a lot of distraction. So we distracted each other. Very little judgment. You just showed up. It didn't matter who was in what group, who was what age, what family they were from, kind of hung in your neighborhood. You might recall similar instances yourself. So we really weren't distracted with anything. We just woke up every day. And just to be free of all the things and the baggage that occurs as we grow up along the way. I mean, look at the face. Look how innocent, smiling, free. So I'm going to share something now that's going to take us into a space. We're going to cultivate some of what's been going on in your lives and some tools that you can use as you go forward. So I want to share the application. And if I can't hear, let me know, but here we go.
Imagine you're walking down a street. It's a street you know well, maybe one you walk down every single day. But you're so caught up in your own thinking, wondering what you're going to have for lunch, thinking back to a conversation you had earlier, that you end up falling down a hole. Now, at the bottom of this hole, you find yourself thinking, how did I end up here? Worse yet, the next day, you do the exact same thing. And then again, the next day. It may not sound like an especially cheerful idea, but as an analogy for the mind, it's really helpful, because so often we follow the same habits of mind over and over again. And so we find ourselves in an emotional hole, maybe even a place that's really painful. But imagine if you started just noticing, being more aware of your surroundings. Sure, maybe next time you'd realize a little too late and you'd still end up in the hole again. But maybe the time after that, you'd notice the hole and choose to walk around it instead. This is what it means to train the mind. This is what it means to have headspace.
All right, so what does that tell us? This is the challenge for today, is we are creatures of habit. So we have habits that have been cemented over time. Some of them we think serve us really well, as I did. There's things I do, I love change, but am I really focused all the time? I'm not, because I'm a restless person. So these habits, when we're 5 years old and we're children, they're not there. They form over time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And before we know it, these certain ways of living and being, they become cemented in our brain. So think of these passageways in your brain. We call them neural pathways. And I'm not a neuroscientist, and I'm not going to pretend to take you there, but these neural pathways in your brain are cemented over time. So every time we go to do something, especially if there's a change on the horizon, we don't even stop at the edge of the hole and think that there might even be another way of approaching something differently, maybe even in our job searches. So we just keep walking and we fall down the hole over and over again. How many of you can attest to this? Has it happened, right? Over and over again. But what it takes sometimes is just stopping at the edge of the hole, stopping at the precipice of change and thinking, what can I just I don't have to change completely, because people do not like to change completely, but what can I do a little bit different that might get me a better result? That's stopping at the edge of the hole. And every time you stop, if you do that repeatedly, you are forming new behavior and a new pattern and a new habit, and you're opening up another passageway, another neural pathway for change, for you to do something or consider something different. We try it, we test it. If it works, that becomes more solid, and we do it because we do it over and over again. If not, we stop again at the edge of the hole. We find a better way. I think we can all relate to this, what's going on in the world right now. We're going down the hall, we're going down the hall, we're stopping, we're thinking, we're developing new ideas and new ways to combat, you know, COVID-19 and everything else in the world. And then we go down the hall again. It seems kind of we're going there again, but we're stopping and we're thinking and we're trying. So that's the whole point of this. Anybody have any questions or comments about that? Did that speak to you, that video? Very short, very effective. You know, I listen to it over and over. I use it in most of my classes. Just kind of sets the stage. So we're going to go back to the presentation, to the main screen. And again, here, you know, you start to develop habits as a young child, and then over time, we change and we mutate, basically. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the little arrow there. Change in the air. It's in the air for you and I. It's in the air in your job search. It's in the air when you're considering what to do with the rest of your life. And it's in the air. There's changes going on around us that we have no control over as we're making decisions in our life. And I threw this in here. I at the last minute because I've been using this slide a lot because it really speaks to what's going on. You can take it on an individual level. Take it whether it's the pandemic, whether you're in a job search, no matter what it is. Change requires this curve. There's denial, fear, and anger and resistance in the red zone. And we're in the red zone. It's really hard to consider. We go down the hole over and over again because we just don't stop and consider that there's any other way of life or any other way of doing things. So with COVID-19, there's still people here in the red zone, yet I'm working with people who are going back to work in the workplace. And the manager has to make them feel good about that, but they themselves don't want to be there because they're still fearful. It's a really tough time. But as you start to think and you stop by the end of the hole and you think, okay, it's here to stay. I could stay in this mode forever, or I've got to at least open my mind into moving on a little bit. And then you can start to think, okay, what do I need to accept what is and move forward up the change curve? And at that point, you open yourself into new ways of thinking. You stop at the end of the hall. You think of a new way. You test it out. Does it work or not work? It's not always going to work. Failure's okay because it tells you maybe that's just, you know, not going to serve you well going forward and that there is a better way out there. So we're constantly relearning until we find new ways of integrating new habits into our life and opening up new neural pathways. So, and this is a roller coaster. I mean, just when we think we're here, look where we are again in the world. I mean, this is just a roller coaster. And this is important because in your interactions with other people, again, even job searches and things like that, interviewers, this is them. This is where they are too. So, you know, it changes the conversation a little. That's not for this particular presentation, but it changes the conversation. So it's really cognizant to be cognizant of the change curve, you know, and where you are in it at any given time. So the last thing about this is when I work with people, no longer are we talking, I work with Rutgers right now on a project and they're talking like what's going to happen 3 to 10 years out. But when you think about it, I'm finding anyway, and maybe you can chime in here for your own experience, I'm finding that the only thing we could do now is make incremental change. And I like to think of it as positive incremental change because it's all we're capable of. And there's just too many variables. And getting a group of leaders in an organization, when I get called in to work with them, and we're trying to talk about what's going to happen 3 years out, we can't see that anymore. So we work on incrementally the portals we have to pass through to get to that. And we just try to take steps towards that first portal. So can anybody identify with this, or anybody want to have a comment about this? You can come off mute or type it in the chat, and David, you can monitor that.
Sure. So there's a question there's 2 questions came in. First one's from Jean, came in just a few minutes ago. Are you suggesting that we need disruption in our routines?
I'm suggesting that, yeah, maybe I am suggesting that. I think it's okay. I think I'm not saying go out and disrupt your routines. What I'm saying is question whether or not your routine serves you. If you find a routine that isn't quite getting you where you need to be over and over again, then I'm suggesting that you consider that I can tweak there. Maybe not changing the routine, but is there, because of what's going on around me, is there something that I can do to test in the test area a way that might get me a result that I'm looking for, that I'm kind of falling short of.
Okay, thank you. And Edith has a question. I guess it's a question and a comment. Why do we never learn our life's lessons? They are repeated even with different situations until we get an awareness or take an action. It leads to growth.
And that, was that Edith?
Yes.
That is the best lead-in for diving into the positive intelligence conversation now. I couldn't have even had a slide that kind of brought us there any better. So thank you, Edith. And if there's no more questions, we're going to go forward with this. Any more questions in there?
Yeah, there's another from Jean. How do you contrast unconscious and conscious stages, whether in incompetence or competence?
What was the first word? How do you what?
How do you contrast unconscious and conscious stages, whether in incompetence or competence?
Okay, so unconscious is, and this is one way, you do something over and over again, you don't even think about it. So when I used to be a member of my YMCA, it's right after the exit to 287, but I, for 25 years, got on 287 to go to work. So I get on 287 to go to the Y, and now I'm nowhere near the Y. So that's like unconscious. It's just a part of you. It's a fiber of you. It's that neural pathway that's been cemented for so long, you don't even know you're doing it, right? And it does create the ability to even consider that there's a new way, a more competent way of doing something. So when we become conscious of that, so the red is unconscious, right? And it's incompetent. We can't change in the red zone usually until we consider and own part of that. So denial, fear, anger, resistance, unconscious, it's in there, it's a feeling. Then we become more conscious of what these feelings are, the impact they are on our lives, and we don't necessarily get rid of them. We learn that we have to somehow find a part of them to accept so that we can consciously make a decision to move forward, right? We might still be a little incompetent, but we make it a conscious decision to find a more competent way of doing and being. When we become conscious and we cross that line and we're in the upward curve, now we've become conscious and deliberative and intentful on the competencies that we need to create in our lives to be able to bring us to the area that we want to be in, to the results we're looking for. And when we do it over and over and over again and the new habit forms, that again becomes unconscious, but it's working. We're no longer falling down the hole. I hope that explains that.
Gene's nodding his head up and down, so I guess so.
Okay.
And Michael has a question. Michael, you may want to unmute yourself to ask Marian your question.
Marian, I think you hit upon something there, because in the past when I've worked for some large corporations, and you're a new person and you kind of wonder about certain things, so you say, why do you do it this way? And the typical answer I got is because we've always done it that way. It's as if, person A taught person B, taught person C, and no one ever wonders if there's actually a better way, to get something done. It's almost like it's ingrained behavior.
Exactly. It answers a lot of questions, right? So imagine, and this isn't a management class, but I'll just do this last thing, is that you are a manager or you're in a workforce and you're trying to account, you have your new marching orders and you're trying to count for your whole team, some of who are still in denial about the whole thing, COVID or whatever, some who are totally digging their heels and resisting, some are who just, let's just get over that and let's move on. I'm ready to just do a new project. And now, and you have to manage them all. So what's been working well is getting people in the room. Think of your families. This is personal gift to you as well. Your families. We go through the brothers and sisters. There's 5 of us, really, but we want to kill each other over our opinions lately. And our saboteurs are raging, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But we just have to constantly sit down with organizations and say, got a team right now? Okay, team, let's get in the room. Where are we? It's okay to feel what you're feeling. I recognize you're all going through this curve. And if you want to share where you are, that's fine. If not, how do we reach, let's start here at acceptance. How do we reach a level of acceptance that everybody on the team feels included in, that everybody on the team can at least get ready to make incremental progress? and let's work from there. And what do we want to be known for? What do we want others to look and see in our team? How do we want to approach this? How do we want to feel at the end of this journey? Because right now we don't feel great. Okay, can we move on?
Let's move on.
Let's move on to the good stuff. So mental fitness, there is a definition like there is for everything. It's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive rather than negative mindset. It impacts peak performance, wellness, healthy relationships, and probably way more than that as well. So here's the thing about lasting positive change. We try to learn as much as we can, and we get a lot of insights through life, and we think that, okay, you know, I have everything I need to know in order to make that positive change, like stop at the end of the hall. But we don't always have the mental muscle to be able to go forward, and our best intentions fail. And that's what this is all about. So before we go any further, I am going to give all credit to Shirzad Chamine, who is the one who is the father of mental fitness and has come up with this wonderful program that some of us coaches have gone through and just learned so much. And he's captured the field of mental fitness. He trains coaches. If you're out there, you're a coach. And he has scholarships where it's free. The first 6-week program is free, and learn all about this positive intelligence quota. It's based on all this research, but I just want to let you know that a lot of this, and you'll see it copyrighted on the slides, is Shirzad Chamine's work, not mine. But then we who are certified and who are getting certified have the option to go out and share it with the world, because he truly is a giving man and wants the world to know about the saboteurs so that they can finally, regardless of their age, get by and get through them. So it's based on things like neuroscience, it's based on positive psychology, cognitive psychology, performance science, all rolled up into that. All those things have to do with positivity and intelligence, all rolled up to what is called positive intelligence. And in a simplistic form, it's really your positive intelligence quotient. Everybody says, what's PQ? It's your positive intelligence quotient. And it's how often your mind is serving you rather than sabotaging you, the percentage of time. So think of it like this. This is to set the stage. Again, going back to New Year's or anything you've tried to do, or even now during, you know, the pandemic, there's plans you make and then they're not there and all these other things. So here's why attempts fail. If you've been, you know, we've been around for a while. So you have IQ, which is your intelligence quota or quotient. And IQ is knowledge-based, fact-based, data-based, our ability to acquire and retain knowledge. So IQ is there from birth, and it really doesn't change over time. We form better study habits, we form better ways of taking in information and absorbing it and retaining it, but our IQ doesn't change. So along the way comes EQ, which is emotional intelligence. That's your emotional quotient. And as a coach, you know, I'm very immersed in EQ, working with leaders in EQ. And the neat thing about EQ, it's a great assessment of the capability of a leader and the potential, because it can change. And those leaders who become more emotionally intelligent over time actually make better high-level C-suite leaders and executives overall. But the EQ, as you're changing, it's based on awareness. So if you've ever done an EQ assessment, or a whole lot of assessments, they're awareness, like your Myers-Briggs and things like that. It's all awareness of who you are and where you are. But what happens, and they're going back to the New Year's resolution, is how many times do people say, or how many times have you said, here's what I'm going to do, and I set the goal and I write it down like I'm supposed to write it down, and then I don't meet it. It doesn't happen. So as a coach, there's all these competencies. The last competency is I set a goal for my session. I help people, I ask a lot of questions to help people gain insights and awareness around that. I check in to make sure that they've made progress towards that goal they brought to the session. But the last thing I want them to do is leave with an action. So, you know, 99%, I'll say, what's your specific action as a result of our conversation? And they have an action. What they don't have though, and I question around this, is you just told me how busy you are and how this whole call is about managing your time. But now you're telling me you're going to go out and do this. So what happens when busy comes to call? What happens when COVID gets in the way? So PQ, this positivity quotient, this helps you ensure that action takes place, because we don't have the mental muscle to take the action a lot of times and implement it. And when the going gets tough, because the saboteur trips us up, we give up over and over again. So that's where the PQ comes in. The mental the mental muscle is important, as if think of when you're in the gym, how often and how many weights you have to lift, different types, and you're doing body sculpting. And Fran just posted her son as a body sculptor. It's like every blood vessel and every muscle is sticking out. It's amazing. But all we're doing here is we're going to look at three things. We're going to look at saboteurs, sages, and then commanding that muscle. All right. So does that make sense? And I didn't know about this. So as a coach now, to wrap that up, I now really question people more about their commitment to that last action. I added that piece because I know that 99% of them, as well-intended as they are, even with the small action we create, are not going to do it. And I want to be sure that I know how important it is for them to make that tiny incremental step, or they feel defeated. So I have to make sure that they get this.
So we do have a question from David, but it's not me.
Okay, David, not you.
So David Steinberg, if you want to unmute, please do. David?
Where does spirituality fit into the equation that you have here?
Oh boy, that is a great question. Because I'm not even going into my story, but my whole story, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for my spirituality and my faith. So that's a good question. I'd have to think, well, there's things, I'm looking at it from the spectrum here. So we have the Bible, the Quran, or whatever it is you have, right? That's your kind of like, you have your facts, you have your knowledge. You're always seeking new knowledge. I go to Bible studies all the time. I'm aware of where I'm just thinking this through with you all, and anybody else who wants to chime in, let me know if it makes sense or you have a better example. Emotionally, I know that I'm aware of the fact that there are certain things in my Catholic church, like communion every day, like mass and things like that, which can help me get to where I need to be in life. They fill me up. They do something that a job can't do, right? But the act of doing it, waking up every morning and praying, or doing my rosaries when I say I'm going to do my rosaries, or going to mass, or knowing that every single day I can have the Eucharist and I don't, things like that, that would be the PQ, the mental muscle. I let other things get in the way because of my restless nature. So what do you think, David? Does that make sense? David, not the real David one.
He is the real David. He's another David.
He's the other David.
And I'm also a David S.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Does that make sense, or how do you see that in your own life? Do you have an idea?
Well, for me, I use spirituality in terms of meditation, in terms of asking for guidance, in terms of looking within, and obviously through trial and error, I've reached that point in my life where that has value to me. It may not have value to somebody else, but I feel strongly that I have a choice to create my own future. As I think, so I become. So I trust the power within me to guide me to the right people, the right set of circumstances, the right employer, the right get the right answers, because I don't have it all myself. But when I look within myself, that seems to work very, very well for me. Again, I cannot speak for anybody else because obviously I'm not anybody else. But I was curious about someone wanted to ask me to repeat the question, which I will repeat it. You've already answered it, but I will repeat the question. where does spirituality fit into your equation? So that was the original question that a couple of people asked me to repeat.
Yeah. So, and I guess spirituality, that in itself can be defined in so many ways. I think we can revisit this also, David. When we go through here at the end, there is a way that we do these PQ reps to center yourself and things like that. And that's that last command muscle part.
Mm-hmm.
I questioned a lot. Well, people say, well, I meditate, but then I know I pray a lot. So what's the difference? And if I pray, am I therefore not developing my mental muscle? So I questioned that a lot when I was going through this.
Uh-huh.
But I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I'd love to chat that out with you sometime, because I love those conversations. But I, like you, believe that I'm always in the right place at the right time. Every coaching client comes to me and we somehow end up having some kind of faith-based conversation because we were just meant to be together, to be in each other's lives. So it's refreshing to hear that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, perhaps someday we can have a conversation.
Would welcome that.
Yeah, but not now, because you have a presentation to make.
Yes, we're going forward. We're charging forward. We're going positively, incrementally changing. Dave, anything else in the chat?
Yeah, and what I will do is I'll put Marian's contact information in chat in a moment if anyone who wants to follow up. But yeah, there is a question from Michael. Michael has a question concerning PQ. So Michael, please unmute yourself and you can ask Marian your question.
Marian, I mean, I consider myself reasonably intelligent and capable of learning, but as David knows, I'm venturing now into a new business where I want to do website development for small companies, and even though I'm learning how to do things and what I'm doing is working, there's this annoying thing in the back of my head. What if I make a mistake and don't set up security right, and their website is hacked and they sue me? I mean, I can test, I can see how things work, I can know it does what they want to do, but I still have this annoying insecurity in the back of my head that is something like that going to happen, and what's the end result going to be for me? And I know it's something I have to drive out of my head somehow.
Yes. So, Michael, did you do the saboteur test?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, hold that. I'm gonna ask about that when I get to that screen shortly. Okay, there's a reason for that. That noise in your head. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so hold that thought, because it's
Yep.
really important. Because when I get to that slide, it's going to fit in really well. Okay, thank you.
And there's a question. There's a question from Zoe. Is that feeling of being in the right place at the right time an indicator of high PQ?
I think it's more. I think for me, I don't know. I don't have any science around this. It's maybe more EQ and awareness that I'm in the right place at the right time. And maybe it does, I think, drive my actions and in my business to connect with those type of people. So it could be a crossover. I think probably for me it was EQ. All right. So this positivity quotient is it's the amount of time, like I said, that your mind is either serving you or it's sabotaging you. And it's based on these three things: the saboteur, understanding of the saboteur, that's one of the muscles, how to activate the sage muscle to combat the saboteurs, and then eventually how to command yourself, how to practice some kind of self-command so that you are the ruler over that. So today we're going to go through the saboteurs. We're going to look at them in a little more detail. We're going to discuss what these sages are. And then the whole thing is that you want to be able to intercept the saboteur and boost the sage. And that's the piece we're going to cover before we leave here today. But the thing is that there are more saboteurs than there are sages. There's only 5 sages and 10 saboteurs. One of the saboteurs being the judge, who was the biggest saboteur of all, like the mother of all saboteurs. So the saboteurs they can motivate you when you're feeling negative because you're going to drive through everything. But they also create a lot of fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity, those feelings, that feeling in the back of your head, Michael, that could all be, that's like saboteurs speaking. And again, over time, they've tricked us into thinking maybe they're good for us, but they don't always. They're not always good for us. So we have to manage them. With these saboteurs, we can drive towards change. We could drive towards success. We can have a successful life. We can be great at our jobs. We can get a job that we want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be happy. So here's that crossover when you think of people say intelligence. So when I go back to my life, and I've been accused even now of being like, you always see the glass half full, because most of my family's accountants and financial planners, and they're very serious. And why are you always like, you can't just always be happy about everything? But I just live my life like that. So I'm thinking, when I got invited to that program, I'm thinking, well, why would I even want to go to a positive intelligence? I'm already happy. I'm already positive. But you're going to find out in a minute how wrong I was. Like, so wrong. Learn to manage our saboteurs. So we're literally there. We have two minds and two brains, the saboteur brain and the sage. So the sage, helps motivate us towards positive emotions. It replaces that fear and stress with things like empathy and curiosity, passion, purpose. And it's the reason why, if you can master this, you're not only going to be successful, but you're going to also be able to be happy. So in working with organizations right now, one of my big things is that everybody wants to do, and it's focused on how are we going to bring people back to the office, and how are we going to make the workplace safe. And it's all the data about giving them all the reasons why they should feel safe and why they should feel good, but they don't feel good. So in a great world, imagine if they could come, people, employees or families, anybody could not only do good, but feel good as well, and truly be happy with what they're doing. Would that be a game changer? Probably would, right? Happy people in the workplace. So you've done this, and you've done it already. What you'll get. The survey takes about 5 or 10 minutes to get a report, and it's going to say, what your top 3 are all the way down to the bottom. And you'll be introduced at that time, when you get your results, to the cast of these characters, so to speak. And believe me, they're all characters, aren't they, if you've gone through it. So my question now for the chat, and if anybody wants to come up and share, you can, what kind of saboteur, who was your top saboteur, or your top 2 if they were really close? What did you find out about yourself?
And there's actually a question from the earlier slide. So as people put that in, maybe we'll just quickly ask this question from Jean.
Yeah, go ahead, what people are entering.
How does mastering PQ intersect with a stoic approach to life?
It depends what a stoic approach looks like for you. Who was that from?
Hey, Jean, if you want to unmute, you can.
Yeah, if you give us an idea
question
of what stoic looks like to you, or how you define stoic, that would be helpful.
Well, I think you mentioned coming from a family of accountant, financial planner, and such. I happen to be one of them, and we are serious, and at least I live my life as a stoic in terms of I plan for the worst, so that I could plan better. So for instance, when I'm about to do something, I try to figure out what would be the worst case scenario, and I work from there. So I was wondering if there was an intersection with this approach to the PQ model that is anywhere close to a stoic way of life. And the stoic are always thinking about the worst case scenario and then planning around that.
Yeah, so it is related because, first of all, when I did it, I was doing it in context of me being different from my family, not like trying to label like what accountant or anybody's like, so I should clarify that. It's just that in relation to life, how I show up is different than how the rest of my family was showing up. In terms of going forward, and when you were asking, so all these things in here, we're going to go through in more detail, have to do with, yeah, it's the noise in your head, It's whether or not you're fearful, whether or not you're too over careful, you know, and how you show up. And if you relate it to the job search, it could be why you find yourself over and over either attracted to similar positions or in the same position during an interview, or still in the same place as you were in your job search as you were before. So yes, there is a correlation, I think, too, as we go through the next slide, to things that hold us back or things that it's so deep-seated and embedded in our behaviors that we don't realize that it's there until we take time to think about it. Is that all right, Jean? Okay. So what are you seeing in the chat, David? What kind of people do we have here in Saboteurs showing up?
So one person said pleaser, victim, and avoider. Another said hyperachiever, and the second choice is saboteur, but not even close to the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And another person put pleaser. Another person put hypervigilant, and then a third or a fourth person put hypervigilant. So a lot of hypervigilant people.
A lot of hypervigilant. That doesn't surprise me because of the world today.
Hyper-rational and controller is coming through. Okay.
Uh-huh. And if you haven't done so already, then go and read those in detail and do a little more research. And if this really interests you, I would go to youtube.com, and there is a TED Talk. I could put it in the chat before the end of the day. And it's the one that he does, that Shahrzad Shamin does in Stanford, in the campus in California. And it just brings this all to light about how this really shows up in the world. So what you see here, this cast of characters, all these saboteurs showing up, but what we have to be cognizant of is that the judge, if you look back here, there's the judge on the bottom in black. Everybody possesses the judge in one way, shape, or form. So it's not only that we judge, but we are judged. So, and the judge many times contributes to, you know, our saboteur and the way we show up as a result of our saboteur. So the judge is just, we go through life and it becomes so embedded that we don't realize that we're not only judging people and others, that we judge ourselves in relation to others, that we judge the situations that we're in. So the judge is the biggest saboteur out there. And again, we can go through just the judge alone, but I wanted to get through the accomplice saboteurs, which are the ones that you're bringing up there in the chat box. So here's the thing, is that this accounts for some of your behaviors. This accounts for some of your thoughts. And this accounts for why when you're at the edge of the hole, a lot of times you don't stop. You just keep going down, 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 because this habit, this saboteur, again, tricks us. It's very, very crafty and has tricked us over these years. So I'll go through these, but I'll use mine as an example. So can anybody guess? I've already told you my saboteur. Who remembers my saboteur? Anybody? I slipped it in there once or twice. Any guesses?
Pleaser, restless. That's what's come through so far.
So pleaser is 3. Mine
Restless.
goes restless, control, please. And restless hit me in the head like, wow, that explains so much. So I go through this, and as soon if I were to look at these probably without even taking the test first, this assessment, I probably would have picked this one out, because all my life I thought it was great that I'm the one that grabs life by the horns, and I'm trying new things, and I'm hiking new paths, and I have tons of friends because there's not enough people in the world to meet. And, you know, just being a leader at work and just always finding, like, I was so innovative at Rico University with all the technology changes, all this stuff. So of course, as soon as I get my results, I'm thinking, wow, yeah, restless. Well, that's probably the best one. And there is no best one, but I'm going, oh, you know, who wouldn't want to be restless? And then I'm reading about it and I'm thinking, this accounts for every reason why I fall short and I don't always finish things, because I go on to something new, or why I can't focus in the moment, or why I'm not attentive during a conversation. All these things that I just kept going down the hall, leading my restless life, never even stopping to think, the impact that was having on others, or how it was getting in the way of me really, truly finding other ways of being successful and finding the rewards I'm looking for in life, or making a better impact on people, which is one of my goals in life. So that's how it shows up. But it also shows up, so the judge, again, the universal saboteur, it's the ringleader, and it gets all the saboteurs, it kicks them off and gets them all wanting to take action. And the controller, we know that one well, a lot of us just, and I think I see a lot of controller-like behaviors now, because we're going to try to control what we can, because there's so much that's out of our control in these last 2 years, isn't there? Just so much. And the pleaser, we just lose sight of who we are, because we just want to be accepted. We want somebody to accept us. We want to know that we pleased somebody, that we made somebody feel good. And so you mentioned, David, there's a lot of hyper-rational in there. So those are people who kind of, we don't want to go into our emotions, that we just want to, there's got to be a rationale for where we are right now. There's got to be a rationale, or doesn't that person understand the implication of their behavior? You know, everything has to be explained, usually with data. So if you're the type of person that is hyper-rational, you love all this data coming in and reading all the COVID statistics and reading all the mask statistics and everything else, and just always wanting to be informed. The avoider, right, is a person who just doesn't like to be uncomfortable, avoids confrontation and discomfort. And the victim is like the martyr. It's just like, woe is me, and focus is always on the glass half empty, negative emotions. Just feels like a lot of times that maybe that's their way of looking for attention or affection. And the hyperachiever is just always looking for validation for something they've done. Almost like a workaholic, but not only to be a workaholic to work, but so that other people can notice. Then we have the stickler. Everything's black and everything's white, and things have to line up, things have to measure up, very much a perfectionist, right? And if it's not like that, then there's a need to have to fix it. And finally, the hypervigilant lives a life fearing of what might go wrong. So Michael, this is where I was going to ask you, do you see yourself in any of these? Because, you know, if you're always vigilant, okay, is this the right thing, or could something go wrong? Or maybe you're a little bit anxious or doubting your action or move. I'm curious what your saboteur came up in your assessment.
Pleaser came up first.
Okay.
And because I enjoy making people happy, but victim came up second, because I've been in a number of situations in my work career where I was put into the, you know, no one wanted the position because they knew if the person failed, they'd be fired. You know, so I was hired in some cases to be the victim. You know, they basically, and the avoider, I avoid conflict. You know, I'm one of these people, I like to be left alone to do my work. I don't, you know, like to really get into it with other people, you know, unless I absolutely have to. But I'm one of these, just give me my work and let me sit in the corner and do it and get it done. And you know, and I'm happiest at that point.
Interesting. So that voice you were talking about, it could be also associated with the victim, because we come to expect certain things over and over again because of our past experience. And maybe your voice is telling you that, you know, hey, it hasn't been any different before. I'm always the victim. This is where I land. So here I am again.
Well, that makes sense. I'm trying to work my way through that, you know, by making myself realize that there's a lot of other things I've done that were good. And there were only a limited number of cases where I was set up in this, you know, this failure kind of thing, basically. And I'm trying to kind of push that back. But it's kind of always in the back of my head. It's sort of like, you know, you're looking for the person with the dagger to come up behind you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so what I suggest you do with this, because we can't go into detail unless somebody has one that they want to share that you just have like this light bulb go off. We'd love to hear it, because we want to get to the sages and the command muscle. But what I would do with this is go back to the site, read everything you can about the descriptions of each of these, and take a look at your own lives, and then listen to that TED Talk with the lens of whatever your saboteur is. Now that you have that information, you have that awareness, and see what you learn. And that kind of will tie everything together for you. Are we ready to move on, or anybody has anything to share?
There's one question from Michael that we didn't get to address directly, and he asked, is it correct that the judge does not show up in the report?
The judge does not show up in the report.
Okay, thank you.
But if you read, the judge is there for everybody and kind of manipulates and orchestrates the other saboteurs. But if you read more about the judge, there's whole sections just on the judge, and it's pretty enlightening. But we didn't have enough time to dive into everything here. So now we're going to move on with, so now we know the saboteurs are out there. We know they're tricking us. We know they're very crafty individuals. They've been embedded over time and produce behaviors that we're hardly aware of, or we kind of know, but we're not ready to let go of. So the sage perspective says to us that we look at flip the coin now, that every, and I mean every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. The saboteur says not, but the sage is going to enable us to get there. And the sage lives in the region of the brain that actually is associated with positive emotions and calmness and being clear-headed and creative and seeing the bigger picture and being more open-minded. So it operates from a sage perspective. We call that another perspective. And there's 5 powers: empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. So how do these kick in, these sage powers? So these sage powers, when you're confronted with your saboteur and you have a situation where maybe, let me think of something in my family, for instance, recently, or maybe something about the COVID, and or say somebody in your family gets sick from anything, and you're trying to figure out, you have a saboteur is kind of like maybe helping you avoid that situation, or maybe you're restless with them because, I'll use my mother who's 91. She's got all these needs, and I go and visit her, and she's got these aches and pains, and she's losing her memory, and all these things are happening. So me being restless, I used to just want to go there and kind of I get really restless just listening and listening. I want to just like move the conversation forward, or not listen to some of that and talk about something else, or she won't leave the house now and I want to leave the house with her. So I have these 5 choices. I can either empathize with her and put myself in a place of empathy and ask her, like, what's it like being you? What's it like being 91? And that's what I started doing. And we have these wonderful conversations. Or I can explore with her, and I've had to do this as well, when she started losing her memory, and I said, well, let's try some puzzles. We started with 1,000 pieces, then she couldn't do that, then it's 500. Now it's down to 300, and she has like a dozen of them, and she does them over and over because she doesn't remember. So we had to explore new ways of doing things and be a little innovative. Every time we go there, we're looking out for cues, my brothers and sisters and I. How are we going to innovate to be able to work through the next stage of her life with her in a way that she can feel good and cared for? And so we've had to navigate together the changes that are taking place in her lives and the impact on our lives. And we have to take action. Sometimes there's no more talk. It's okay. We have to change a dose of something. So we take action, and together we decide what that's going to be. So these are the powers that are available to us that we can actually call upon to circumvent or combat the saboteur. So remember I said we manage the saboteur. I don't ever want to get rid of my restless saboteur because it drives me in certain areas, but I also need to manage it so it doesn't take over control. I would sing to say that, at the end of life, if I end up going in the ground or wherever and they're closing the lid, that people bring this stuff, these saboteurs, to their grave. Seriously. and never get rid of them. And yet with a few tweaks and understanding this, we can finally put them to rest. That's the way I looked at this. That's why I figured I call it a gift. So again, the sage looks at everything as a gift or opportunity. So this is the sage opening up. So a question is, which of this is true? The saboteur says this is bad. And the sage says, but this is a gift. Which is true? You could type it in the chat. You can say, do it, come offline, whatever. And what are you seeing, David? Anything?
The first one that came through is gift. Someone said both with a smiley face.
Hey.
Another is both.
Okay.
Depends on the person's perspective. Either one, it depends on how you look at it.
Yep, whichever you believe, here's the answer, becomes true. So if you live your life in the saboteur mode, you're gonna show up like a saboteur, you're gonna think like a saboteur, you're gonna act like a saboteur. If you show up in the sage mode, you're gonna look for the opportunity. So those people, for instance, with COVID who say, I can't wait till it's over so we can go back to the old normal. Well, that it wasn't even normal back then. At first we thought it was a year, and now we're gonna, March will be 2 years. So where does that leave you? The sage would say, this is a gift. What have you learned during this time? What's a new normal that you can take forward? What kind of meaning have you gained here that maybe you were missing, and now it's kind of become a way of your life going forward, a new neural pathway to access. So whatever you believe is what becomes true. So we went through the saboteur, we went through the sage. Here's how you put that action piece into it. With these 10-second, what they call PQ reps. So this is what we learned, and I'm going to tell you how you can adapt it to work for yourself. So the whole thing that makes PQ reps different than like meditation for some, or prayer, or some of the apps where you do like Calm and Headspace and all that, is that it's in the moment. So PQ enables you, when that saboteur is raging, instead of saying, okay, later on when I do my meditation, I'll meditate on that, or in my prayers, I have to incorporate this other thing, at the end of the night when I'm asking myself how I showed up, I'm gonna pray on that. But in that very moment, when that saboteur starts raging, whether it's a conversation with somebody in your family, at work, or as you're going into a job, and you're thinking that, oh my gosh, I had this interview, but based on my past interviews, this one's gonna fall short. All that's a saboteur. So in the moment, here's what you do. 10-second exercises. This is the self-command muscle. This is that third part, saboteur, sage, self-command. The self-command muscle helps you run your brain rather than allowing your saboteur hijacked brain to run you. So let's practice. It might look like this. And the little phone on the right there, that's because and you could actually access this at positiveintelligence.com. You can see it there on the screen. And you pay a fee, but this app will come up and it'll take you through these, gives you all these options for this 10-second, 15-second, 35-second exercises so that you could, in the moment, change. So here I am, a restless person thinking, I have a really hard time closing my eyes or doing anything like meditative, prayer is hard, everything. So let's try this together for 10 seconds, all right? Take your hands, put them onto whatever you're sitting on, whether it's a chair, a bed, a sofa, and rub your hands back and forth and feel the texture. Feel the texture of what it is that you're rubbing against. Feel the feel of what it feels on each individual fingertip. What does it feel like? Speed it up a little bit. Does the feel change? Does the sense of touch change? Is there any heat now associated with it? All right, so that was 11 seconds. What I'm curious about, in that 11 seconds, were you truly focused on what we were doing there, or was your mind off scattered in a million places? Was anybody able to just really feel like you were focused on this whole rubbing your fingers up against your chair?
So one comment is total focus. Well, I was listening also to you. Yes, focus, fully focused.
Yeah, see? So incremental, again, we're not talking go out and find a way. It's what I like about this is it's not something that I had to learn and I had to put a place aside that I'm only going to do it when I'm in that place or at that time. And I needed help in the moment. So when I get restless, another person in our class was explaining an apple. Bite into the apple, feel the crispness, taste the sweetness, rub it, feel the shininess. And just, in those 10 seconds, then you increase as you go along. And you can up to 15 seconds, 20 seconds. But the whole key here is it allows in that moment for you to shift your focus. And each time you do that, you're opening, you're training the saboteur. So even if it's 10 seconds to get the heck out of your head and you're developing a neural pathway, it might be tiny at first, but the more you do that, you can open it up more and more and more. And now it becomes an access channel and you'll see a difference. So what's recommended, it says here, you can't defeat a gang of 10 bandits by sending one new fighter per day for 100 days. But what you can do is 15 minutes a day, right? For 6 to 8 weeks. So the 15 minutes can be broken down into 2 minutes a day. I mean, if you can get to 1 minute, I found that was a changing point for me. When I got to 1 minute, it just got to the point where I felt like I can actually manage it now. And even just doing it with you, like for 10 seconds, for some, that's a lot. Then go to 15, then go to 20. So it could be anything. It could be rubbing your feet. It could be, sometimes they say, just take your fingertips and touch your fingertips or touch your finger to your hand. You be creative. You can, mine's twirling my hair a lot, but then I go, okay, now I got to feel the texture and I got to see which strand's longer than the other strand. Whatever it is, focus on something for 10 seconds, totally immersed, and do not let that saboteur enter that space. And the more you do that, the more you're gonna be able to go forward and manage that saboteur. And it's very simplistic when you think about it. We call it the operating system. Shazad Sharmin calls it the operating system, but technically it's very simplistic. If you're feeling negative, you stop. And I've done this in meetings with clients. So they don't know. I mean, when I was pregnant, I used to eat crackers and nibble under the table. They probably knew, but they don't know I'm stopping now and being, I feel emotion, or if there's negativity in the room, I stop. And I just kind of unplug for a couple seconds because that means I'm in the saboteur mode. And so I do a couple PQ reps and just want to quiet them down. Maybe they're not going away. I just want them to stop talking for a minute so I can activate my sage. Then I take the sage perspective and I figure out, what do I need to do in this situation? Do I need to be more empathetic? Or do I need to explore something from their viewpoint? Or do you need to innovate? Or do I need to just take action, activate a new mindset maybe? So with the sage perspective, every problem can be converted into a gift or opportunity. And then I generate the gift by applying the sage power. Because now that I've done the PQ reps, I'm more centered, saboteur is a little quieter. I'm going to take that sage and I'm going to activate a part of it. And that's going to, that's how we manage the saboteur. That's what positive intelligence is about. So is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage response even in tough challenges? The answer is yes, as we've been talking about today, but the speed and depth of the shift depends on the mental muscle. So now we go back to the mental muscle and building it. You can see where you have to build that. If you don't build it and open those neural pathways, they don't happen by themselves. So this is a simplistic approach to doing that. Any questions, any thoughts?
Yes, there is. There's one from Gregory.
Okay.
Can you give an example of a real life situation or within the job search process?
Sure. What is there any part of the job search process that you think would be valuable, either David or anybody else out there?
So Gregory, if you want to unmute just to clarify your question or be more specific.
Well, how about just, potentially when you're looking at a list of jobs through job possibilities through LinkedIn or, Indeed or one of the other job boards. I was just kind of curious because I was totally focused on the chair exercise, but I just wanted to see if you had an example of something more, more real life or within the job search.
So within your job search, can I ask what your saboteur is? And if you didn't do the assessment, which one of these do you see yourself in?
Well, I came out very high with the hypervigilant, and then I think second was the pleaser.
Okay, so somewhere in there, so what, do you have a specific challenge when you're looking for jobs that keeps appearing over and over?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge I have right now is just trying to figure out, is it am I looking for something back in the corporate world? Am I looking for a consulting opportunity? Am I looking for part-time opportunity? Is it just volunteer? So kind of just juggling all that back and forth as far as what could be that next opportunity for me.
And are there any thoughts that are driving that process of you looking? Like what kind of comes to mind as you start searching these job boards from?
I'll be turning 63 in 2 weeks. So 65 is right around the corner. Want to stay busy, want to stay active, mentally active, but at the same time, kind of starting to enjoy life. So, I think I'm kind of swaying, moving from the corporate world. Consulting is out there, but I think the part-time opportunity is probably starting to take a lot of focus.
Right, so you're kind of like, so you have the pleaser and you're already orchestrating some of the exploration part, right?
Right
now. So you're kind of already trying to use a perspective, but then the pleaser of you, so you've always been a job. You probably approached it as a pleaser type person where, you always felt good about what you did. You always felt maybe accepted because of your title. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Tell me if any of this is true. It would just felt good that you did a good job and that people noticed that. And you felt like
absolutely.
you were good at what you did.
Yeah.
So that
I would say that's right on the mark.
And I work with people in a position like this in their 60s. There's point it that we're not setting out in our next stage of life to please people, but we want that feeling. Like it's hard to let go of that. And the same with the hypervigilant. So you're kind of like in self-doubt. So you're doubting like what life on the other side is going to be like. Right. So as you explore, you may also go back and look at those sage powers. You may also need to, one thing they talked about, and if you listen to the TED Talk, which starts with empathy, I thought empathy was giving empathy to other people. There was a whole section on self-empathy. I knew in terms of myself. It was enlightening about your self-empathy. But then, you're learning, but at some point, you're going to have to find an innovative way of still finding out, what you had that you used to have and how you're going to go ahead and get it in your next act, so to speak. Does that make sense? And then as you go on, you're going to have to create new actions that are in line with what it is for the results you're looking for and how you want to feel going forward.
Yeah, no, I can see that, Marian. No, thanks. I appreciate you, expanding a little further on a kind of just the job search situation. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome.
There's another question. This is from Bill. Can you just quickly review the SAGE powers? I have explore, innovate, and activate, so I'm missing 2. There's the slide. And by the way, folks, Marian will be providing the slides to us, so we'll post them later.
Yeah, you'll have these slides. They empathize, first of all, and again, it's self-empathy along with empathy of others. So you may have to, when you're doing your job search, empathize with, hey, I'm going to put myself in my own shoes. And my own shoes were that as a pleaser, in the one we were just looking at, as a pleaser, there's certain things that I've always liked about work. I like contributing. I like being recognized. I like being part of a team. So, let's have a little empathy. I'm putting myself in my own shoes to figure out what really lights me up going forward. Then exploring the options. Then maybe innovating, being a little innovative in my search if the same search is falling through over and over again. And then finding new ways to navigate the next act in life for you, Bill. Is that Bill who was speaking? And then taking action. But yes, you will get these and you will be able to see that and also hear the recording after this session.
Great, thank you. And we have a question from another Bill. Does the TED Talk, you mentioned the TED Talk earlier, does the TED Talk
Yes.
have a name? Who is the speaker? Someone also asked about it. Do you have the URL, the web address?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to put it in the chat now.
Oh,
It's
okay.
his TED Talk. It's Shirzad Shamin, Positive Intelligence. I listen to it every time I give one of these presentations. I listen to it again because I keep picking something up. I'm going to go out and get it, and I'm going to put it in the chat for you all. And this is Positive Intelligence. So if there's another question, let me know.
Well, we'll just play Jeopardy music while you look this up. Yeah.
Hey, David, this is Linda Trignano. I just
Hi.
want to chime
Hi,
in here.
Linda. How are
I'm
you?
Marian. I'm fine. Excellent presentation. I just wanted to support what you're saying from a job search perspective, in the fact that job search is really tough mentally, and all the tools that you're giving are very valuable. I just heard the last person ask about, being unsure of what step they want to take. But I just want to say that all of the tools that you gave can be implemented at any point because of this constant wearing mentally during job search. So no matter which place you put yourself in, the saboteur kicks in no matter what. So I just want to offer that up because I always think of job search as so difficult. And you've given us a real great bunch of tools for a toolbox for a job search event in life. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. It's good to hear from you.
You too.
Am I still sharing screen? Yeah. Any more questions? I think we went through just about everything. Yeah, and this will be in there as well, but really, just reach out to me, email, or I'll put my cell phone in there if you want. I don't mind people calling, or you can find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, so we're back. Thank you. David, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So thank you so much, Marian. Taking the assessment, learning about the assessment really helps us have some clarity. And I think that's really, becomes very important, because sometimes when we're just heads down doing something, and for us at PSG, a lot of that is job search, it's almost like you can't see the forest through the trees. So I think having this as a little bit of an independent tool for us to use gives us a little bit of clarity and helps us understand ourselves a little bit more, helps us understand, the saboteurs and a way to get that sage perspective. So thank you so much for this presentation. I think it was very helpful for all of us.
Thank you again for having me. And again, this is a kind of like a gift to yourself for life, because this isn't just about finding a job or business. This is like how we show up in life and how much of that baggage we want to keep carried around and take with us, and how much we just want to really manage it. So good luck to all of you.
Terrific, thank you. And before we wrap up, once we wrap up in just a couple minutes, we're going to keep this session open for a little while. So if we want to hang around a little and just chit chat about whatever we want to talk about, if Marian, you're welcome to, as per your schedule, to stick around with us a little bit, just hanging around the meeting room after the presentation, but just until we get to there. Next week, we will be right back here again. Next week will be September 3rd. Can't believe it's September already. Janelle Rosino will be here. She is a recruiter, corporate recruiter, or actually she's an independent recruiter, has a lot of corporate clients, and she'll be talking about reach out and touch someone, how to connect with people and build those relationships. So Janelle is always a pleasure when she comes to visit us. So that's next week, September 3rd. The following week, September 10th, Tamara Causey Robinson will be here. And I think this is a wonderful topic some of us don't always think about, but how to deal with the impact of job loss on our family and our relationships. A lot of us kind of internalize job loss and we think we go through it on our own, but sometimes it does impact our family. So just be a little bit aware about how it impacts the people who are close with us. So Tamara Causey Robinson on September 10th, how to deal with the impact of job loss on family and relationships. And of course, other groups that you can certainly visit when you want. New Jersey Job Seekers meets every Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening. There are different facilitators. What's nice is it's an open discussion. We talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Just so happens I will be the facilitator this Tuesday. You can find the Zoom meeting link. We do post it in our LinkedIn group. I posted it at the beginning of the week, and I'll post it again once again, so go check that out. It's free to join. Just click on the Zoom link. And we have a couple of cousin organizations we're close with. PSG of Central New Jersey meets on Mondays at 10:30 in the morning, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. And also PSG of Morris County meets on Wednesday mornings at 9:30, psgmc.org, psgmc.org. And of course, PSG of Morris County also opens up their session before 9:30 for open discussion as well. So that's what we have coming for the next couple of weeks. And once again, thank you so much to Marian. I'm so glad that you are such a friend and supporter of job seekers and us here at PSG of Mercer County. Such a pleasure, and I'm glad that you were able to participate with us this week. And until we get to see you again, hopefully at least virtually, if not maybe even in person, we'll simply say, bye everybody.